show you how I do it. Hi and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Elaine from Foodbod Sourdough, and in this video I'm going to show you how I make sandwich loaves using my master recipe. So what you'll see in front of me are loaves made using my standard master recipe, which you'll be able to see in the longer video that we already have, but taking that dough and using it to produce sandwich loaves. So to do this, we can use my standard recipe, we can use the same flour as I've used previously. For these, I've used Matthews Cotswold Strong White Flour for feeding my starter, because I always do, because I like it, and Churchill's for the actual dough. So those are the flours that I've used to make these. I've also used the pizza flour quite a lot recently, trying it for different things, and it makes a fabulous sandwich loaf, really light. And the pizza flour is actually made with a dough conditioner, a flour conditioner in it, which helps to make the dough really extendable. So it's got basically ascorbic acid, it's got lemon juice in it, what's created from lemon juice, which really relaxes the dough so that when you make pizzas and pizza bases, you can stretch it really easily. But it also makes great sandwich loaves. It makes great other loaves as well. But it's another one to try, and you can use it in exactly the same way. You will find that the dough that creates is really stretchy, really, really bouncy. So the best starting point with these is using my standard master recipe, which you'll find online, you'll find in the other videos. So it's 50 grams of starter, 350 grams of water, 500 grams of flour with salt to taste, unless you are making changes for the water for where you are or the flour you're using. And then it's using that to convert it to make a sandwich loaf. So that's what we're going to show you on this video. It's not too long, but it's going to give you the basics for making sandwich loaves using a Pullman pan, which I will explain more about, which you can find easily online. They make a really nice high-sided loaf rather than using your standard 2-pound sandwich loaf tin. And we've got them lined, which you'll also see me talk about. So this is what's coming in the video. Sandwich loaves are us. Yes, let me show you how I do it. Here we are with our proof dough. I hope you can see it okay, because the sun has just come out behind me, making things very bright and frustrating poor James, our beloved videographer, and the dog is walking around the kitchen. So, you know, you're getting the whole life inside a home kitchen experience. So we have the proof dough, and this is now going to go into the sandwich tin. So this is your standard master recipe dough. You can start to add more water to it if you want to. So I have various sandwich loaf recipes. This is just based on using my straight master recipe, which you'll see from the previous videos that I've put up. So this is just your typical 50 grams of starter, 350 grams of water, 500 grams of strong white bread flour, and salt to taste. And this dough is going to go into this tin. So this is a Pullman pan. Typically, these pans come with a lid. So they are made to be able to produce square loaves, because you bake them with a lid on, you get a very nice square loaf, of which I also have recipes in my book. I'm going to use this without the lid on to bake a taller sandwich loaf. So it's actually going to come out over the top. Now, when you buy these, they tend to be with a non-stick finish. The non-stick finish doesn't, in my experience, last too well, however much you grease it. But also for ease, I tend to line them. So again, I have another video on this, but I've lined my loaf pan. So I've already cut out some parchment paper to fit into the tin. And by using the paper, not only are you going to make sure that the loaves come out of your tin, it makes it easier to transfer the dough into the pan, as I will show you. So we've got our pan ready, doesn't need greasing because you put paper in it. Open the paper up, ready to go. And we're going to use the usual action of pulling and folding the dough, but this time to pull it into a nice big tight fat sausage. So we want to pull the dough. We're going to start by pulling it into one long tight line. This is a very, very bouncy dough. It's decided in the current weather to be really bouncy. So we want to start off with it pulled right across to the middle in a nice line, so it's nice and tight, and then turn it round, just tuck it in from the sides, and do the same again. So, what thing to remember at this point always is you can be as firm with this dough as you like. Don't just tickle it and be gentle with it and be scared of it, because you'll have no shape. Okay? And we're just going to keep turning it, pulling it into the middle until you've got a point where you feel that you can pick that up. And you can have it in your hand and feed it onto your paper. Now you see the point of the paper is you pick the paper up, plonk it into your pan. So I'm not going to tip this up too much to show the camera because it's all going to flop. But what you've got then is your nice sausage of dough. Don't worry too much about it. Don't be then trying to push and pull and prod it, because what will happen is we're now going to put the cover back on and prove it again. Now you have two choices here of how you prove it. You can either do it on the counter or do it in the fridge. I'm going to put mine in the fridge, and what you'll see with what comes out at the other end is actually it gives you a much better finish. And much as I've got both versions available to be able to do, more and more I will do this in the fridge. So what you'll see is this will take its time to prove. It will come up, it will just about meet the height of the pan, and then it'll be ready to bake. But you will have a lovely super smooth surface. So if you don't believe me, just wait and see when it comes out again. So that's going to go cover on and into the fridge. So here we have our fully proved dough coming from the fridge. So we've already made the dough, pulled the dough together as you've already seen. So it's been sitting in the fridge doing its second proof. And as I said before, you have two choices with this. You could do this part of the process on the counter, or you could do it as a longer, slower process in the fridge. More and more, I like doing this part of the process in the fridge, and I'll show you why. Because you get such a lovely, even, smooth finish to it. I mean, it ends up sometimes literally as smooth as silk. And you could see how it came together and what the ball of dough looked like when it went into the pan to prove. But this is what happens. So when you do this part of the process in the fridge, so when you leave it in there to do its second proof and fill the pan and grow up, it does it so slowly that you get this nice even finish, which will give you a nice even shape. So if you ever bake sandwich loaves and you have this weird random bubbly surface to it, and it's odd looking finish to the top that you're not sure about, usually that comes from doing the second proof, this part of the process on the counter, and it's been too warm and the dough has bubbled. So next time, try doing it in the fridge. So you'll see in my recipes and my book that there's both choices. More and more, I'm doing it in the fridge. And now this is going to go straight into the oven. So don't leave it on the side to warm up. You'll lose all of its shape. It's going to go straight into the oven. As usual, I'm going to bake it on a cold oven, from a cold oven start. It's going to go in at 180 degrees centigrade, 350 Fahrenheit on a fan or convection setting, or that's 200 degrees centigrade, 400 Fahrenheit for a standard non-fan conventional oven. And it's going to be in there from a cold start. We're going to look at it after about 50 minutes and see how it looks, because remember, it can always go back in. And with sourdough, often baking a bit longer than you think is better than baking for a bit shorter time. So this is now going to go into the oven. Just look at that. You end up with such a beautiful silky surface. So this is now going to go in the oven. Sandwich loaf is now baked. So let's get it out the oven. And what you'll see is how it's come out of the top of the pan. So if you did by accident put the lid on the pan because you think you should, you probably would get some escapage because it would have been too tight for the pan. So this is why we're doing it without the lid on. And here is our sandwich loaf. So we want to tip it out. Now with the paper liner that you've created, you can very easily peel it off so that you can use it again. So this is how you get the most out of creating that liner. So even though it's torn a little bit, I can use that again. And then we can check about how you feel about whether that's baked enough. Now I think that needs to go back in for a little while because for some reason we are baked really well on one side but not so well on the other. But it can very easily go back in just for a little finish, which is what I will do. But this shows you our beautifully baked sandwich loaf. And you can see all of the dimples, so see all of that. This is your sourdough at work. This is what your starter has created. All the beautiful blisters that you've got on the crust. This is the joy of sourdough. And don't be scared to put it back in the oven because you can bake sourdough for a lot longer than people seem to realise. It's very easy to underbake, but it's actually quite hard to overbake. Now I'm going to put that back in the oven just briefly out of the pan, just because I want to cook that bit for a little bit longer. Plus I've now got others to get out the oven. So I put this back in the oven for a little while and it's come out and it's looking absolutely fine. So a perfect way to test your loaf and whether it's baked or not is tapping the base, which I did earlier but I didn't explain. If you tap the base of your loaf and it sounds hollow, that is a way to know whether or not your loaf is baked. I know some people stick temperature thermometer prongs into their loaves to see what the temperature is. And never do that. I've never done that. I don't like the thought of sticking a prong into my newly baked loaf. But just by tapping the base, you'll be able to hear it, you'll know. And this is another loaf that I baked at the same time. So this is also to show you, you know, sometimes they come out slightly different in shape. And, you know, it depends on where the heat is in your oven. It depends on how you shaped it. To me, I don't have a problem with that. You know, and it happens to me just as it happens to everybody. So this was in a different part of the oven. It's got a different shape. But again, we're nicely baked, which is what we're looking for. So there are our sandwich loaves. And I hope this inspires you to give it a go and try a different shape. And it's by using just a standard master recipe as it's written. Once you've got that dough, you can do anything with it. So it can become sandwich loaves. It can become different shapes. You could now take this and start adding seeds to it. You can add different flavors to it. I do a lot with recipes with sandwich loaves because there's so much you can play with. You can also, of course, then fit the slices in the toaster, which is why I make more and more of these because that's what is required in this house. They're a lot easier to work with than the round loaves, really, if we're honest, although the round loaves look fabulous. But these, they give you so much opportunity with what you can do with them. And if you do have dough that you feel is a bit soft, a bit difficult to shape, a bit difficult to handle, you're worried if it's on the edge of overproving, bake it in a tin. The beauty of using a tin is it gives your dough shape. So if you're concerned that you've got dough that you think is going to spread, it's going to lose its shape, just bake it in a tin. It's a perfect solution. But this is, look at them. These are your sandwich loaves. This is my master recipe sandwich loaf. I hope you'll give it a go. I hope you get that beautiful smooth as a baby's bum surface when it comes out of the fridge. And of course the challenge is, as ever, leave it to cool before you slice into it. So no, James, you're not having any just yet. I hope you'll have a go. Thank you for watching.